Fate is the unfolding of events beyond our control. Today's stories will illustrate how, despite our best efforts and choices, destiny often dictates our path. Viewer discretion is advised. On April 13, 2011, in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Ashley witnessed a car pull into her driveway and stop. The vehicle belonged to her friend, 33-year-old Kathy Michelle Coy. Upon noticing Kathy remained in the car, Ashley approached to greet her. Inside, she saw Kathy holding a newborn baby boy, naked from the waist down with bloodstains on the seat. Alarmed, Ashley opened the door and saw bloody tissue on the car seat. Recognizing the need for immediate medical attention, she rushed Kathy and the baby to Bowling Green Medical Center around 6 p.m. At the hospital, doctors were immediately suspicious of Kathy's story. They discovered she had brought in a uterus, ovaries, and placenta, still attached to the baby via the umbilical cord. The obstetrician determined Kathy could not have given birth to the newborn. Instead of providing standard post-birth care, the hospital staff contacted the Kentucky State Police. 3 weeks prior, Kathy had befriended 2 pregnant women on Facebook. She reached out, expressing interest in their pregnancies and offered assistance. Discovering one woman and her sister were facing eviction, Kathy claimed she worked for an organization that provided baby clothes and financial aid. This was a calculated manipulation, setting the stage for a disturbing crime. Kathy, despite her existing children, became fixated on childbirth after a miscarriage. This obsession fueled a sinister plan. She falsely claimed pregnancy, befriending pregnant women on Facebook to steal their babies. She targeted Jamie Stice, a vulnerable 21-year-old, offering life-changing assistance. Kathy convinced Jamie to accompany her to buy baby supplies. However, instead of driving to stores, she drove into a secluded wooded area. There, Kathy attacked Jamie, performing a crude cesarean section. This violent act resulted in Jamie's death and the removal of her newborn son. Kathy then took the baby and drove to Ashley's house, presenting the child as her own. The evidence found at the hospital, including the removed organs, directly linked her to the crime. The police were able to follow the trail of her interactions with the women and her sudden appearance with a newborn to convict her. Kathy used a stun gun to subdue Jamie, then bound her. She brutally slashed Jamie's wrists and throat before performing a crude cesarean section, extracting the baby. In her haste, she also removed Jamie's uterus and ovaries. This inadvertent act provided crucial evidence for her eventual capture. After leaving Jamie's body in the woods, Kathy took the newborn to the hospital. She was arrested that night, charged with murder and kidnapping. Initially, she claimed to have given birth, then shifted her story, alleging she bought the baby from Ashley. When that failed, she led police to Jamie's body, located 16 miles from the hospital. Over a year later, on February 28, 2012, Kathy was sentenced to life without parole. This sentence came despite Jamie's family's desire for the death penalty. Her actions shocked the community and revealed a level of calculated cruelty that left investigators and the victim's family horrified. In March 1962, a family of 5 settled into a new home in Mexico City. A man, his pregnant wife, their 10-year-old son, their 2-year-old daughter, and their grandmother. Initially, they were happy and content. However, their joy was short-lived. The 10-year-old boy soon developed severe flu-like symptoms far beyond a typical illness. Unbeknownst to the adults, his sickness was linked to a metallic capsule he'd been playing with. The capsule's origin remained a mystery, but it was present in the home upon their arrival. Tragically, the capsule contained a deadly substance unknown to the family. Medical professionals were equally baffled by the boy's symptoms. The exact moment the capsule was opened is unknown, but it's believed the boy found it in late March or early April. He was drawn to the shiny metallic cylinder, a small capsule which he carried in his pocket. When he misplaced it, the insidious effects began to unfold. He found the capsule again, possibly in the yard, and brought it back inside. His mother, finding it in his pants pocket, stored it in a kitchen cabinet with the dishes. Days later, she noticed the glassware blackening but didn't connect it to the capsule. In mid-April, the boy developed a fever, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. A burn-like lesion appeared on his thigh near his pocket. His appetite vanished. His mother, still unaware of the capsule's danger, assumed it was a common illness. Around this time, she and other family members experienced milder symptoms. Assuming a citywide bug, they didn't suspect anything unusual. However, the boy's condition deteriorated. On April 16th, he was hospitalized. Antibiotics, vitamins, topical treatments, and intravenous fluids proved ineffective. His symptoms worsened, including hyperventilation, bloody diarrhea, and a high fever. Tragically, he died on April 29th. As the boy's condition worsened, so did the rest of the family's. Panic set in. Doctors were baffled, unable to identify the cause. Their tests revealed no virus or disease. They were dealing with a syndrome, not an illness. The family was suffering from acute radiation syndrome. The metallic capsule contained cesium-137, a radioactive isotope. The boy, carrying it in his pocket, received the highest dose. His mother, handling it, received a substantial dose as well. The rest of the family, exposed to the contaminated environment, received lower but still dangerous doses. The blackening of the glassware was a direct result of the cesium-137's radiation. The family's symptoms, initially resembling the flu, progressed into severe radiation sickness. The boy's death was a tragic consequence of direct and prolonged exposure. The gradual worsening of the family's health was due to their continuous exposure to the radioactive material within their home. The insidious nature of radiation poisoning made it difficult for doctors to diagnose, highlighting the devastating impact of unknowingly handling radioactive substances. The capsule contained cobalt-60, a synthetic radioactive isotope produced in nuclear reactors. This was the same capsule his mother placed in the kitchen cabinet, contaminating the dishes. Despite its size, the cobalt-60 was lethal. Radiation's impact depends on exposure time, distance, and frequency. While cobalt-60 is less radioactive than others, the boy's prolonged exposure was devastating. The capsule and its container were lined with lead for protection, but removal compromised this. Around the boy's hospitalization, his mother developed anorexia, nausea, and vomiting, leading to her own hospitalization. Tragically, she and her unborn child died on July 19th. Her radiation dose was lower than her son's, but still fatal. Alarmed, medical staff feared a potential outbreak. With 2 deaths and ongoing illnesses, they notified the National Institute of Public Health of Mexico. They suspected a virus, but the truth was far more insidious. Tragically, the family's ordeal continued. On August 18th, 4 weeks and 2 days after the mother's death, their 2-year-old daughter succumbed. Then, on October 15th, nearly 2 months later, the grandmother also passed away. The only survivor was the father. His daily work trips, which took him away from the contaminated home, reduced his radiation exposure, ultimately saving his life. Only after a comprehensive search of the house was the source of the family's suffering discovered. By then, it was too late. The insidious nature of radiation had claimed 4 lives, leaving one man to grapple with the devastating consequences. About halfway between Europe's northernmost point and the North Pole lies Svalbard, an Arctic archipelago. If land existed at the North Pole, it would likely resemble Svalbard. Due to its extreme northern location, Svalbard is predominantly ice-covered with minimal vegetation. Summer highs average only 45 degrees Fahrenheit, contributing to its extensive glaciers and mountainous terrain. This hostile environment supports a mere 2,500 people, despite Svalbard's size comparable to Scotland. Most residents live in 2 towns, a coal mining community and a hub for international research, housing facilities from 11 countries. Svalbard's unique location provides researchers unparalleled access to a polar laboratory. Svalbard is also home to an estimated 3,000 polar bears, roughly a quarter of the world's population. This means polar bears outnumber humans on the islands. These bears hunt along the ice edge, and female bears den on Svalbard and nearby Russian islands, increasing human bear encounters, especially in remote areas. The Norwegian government mandates specific precautions for campers, requiring flare guns, signal cartridges, and sirens to deter polar bears. In isolated areas, even more stringent measures are necessary, including polar bear watches, guard dogs, and tripwires. While seemingly excessive, these measures are vital due to polar bears' aggressive and curious nature. Despite the inherent dangers, polar bear attacks remain rare. From 1870 to 2014, only 73 attacks were recorded, with 20 fatalities. The harsh environment and polar bear threats haven't deterred explorers seeking unique Arctic adventures. Since the 1930s, the British Schools Exploring Society has brought students to Svalbard, fostering an appreciation for the Arctic wilderness. These expeditions provide unparalleled experiences, showcasing the raw beauty and challenging conditions of this remote region. The juxtaposition of stunning landscapes and potential danger creates an unforgettable adventure, attracting those drawn to the extremes of nature. Unfortunately, in August 2011, an expedition, 81 years into its operation, ended tragically. The expedition leaders had always assured parents of robust safety measures, but these were either disregarded, altered, or insufficient. This was especially unfortunate given the expedition's sterling reputation. For example, a rifle capable of deterring or killing a polar bear was brought, though it was 80 years old. Also, as they weren't camping outside designated areas, a nightly polar bear watch wasn't required. Instead, an electrified fence was erected, intended to be a square. However, due to a lack of brass fittings, it was set up in a triangle shape, secured with paper clips. Crucially, not all expedition members were trained in using the flares and signaling devices. On August 4th, 18-year-old Horatio discovered adult polar bear paw prints near the camp. Instead of fear, the students were excited, believing their safety measures were adequate. The leaders, however, recognized the danger and considered a bear watch. Ultimately, they decided against it, fearing they'd alarm the students and recalling a leader falling asleep during his own student watch. That night, everyone slept soundly, trusting the adults. The following morning, around 7:30 a.m., the polar bear returned. It bypassed the compromised electric fence and entered the campground, making its way to Scott, Patrick, and Horatio's tent. The boys awoke to their tent violently shaking. In their inexperience and grogginess, they were unprepared for the threat. The polar bear, drawn by the smell of food or simply curious, had breached their defenses. The compromised electric fence, the lack of a proper bear watch, and the inadequate training with flares and signaling devices culminated in a catastrophic failure. The adults' decision to prioritize the students' comfort over their safety had dire consequences. The once trusted safety measures proved to be woefully insufficient against the raw power and unpredictable nature of a polar bear. The students' trust, misplaced in the adults' judgment, led to a tragic and preventable encounter. The idyllic adventure turned into a nightmare, revealing the harsh reality of venturing into such a wild and unforgiving environment. Scott, initially thinking a leader was shaking the tent, quickly realized it was a polar bear. The bear pressed down on the tent, its claws tearing through the fabric. As the other boys awoke, the bear swiped at Scott, its 4-inch claws ripping through his skin. Patrick, attempting to move, drew the bear's attention. The bear viciously attacked him, fracturing his skull. Horatio tried to escape, but the bear pounced, sealing his fate. While Scott and Patrick suffered critical injuries, Horatio faced a brutal end. The bear thrashed his body against the rocks, then pressed its full weight on him. Once he went limp, the bear began chewing on his neck. Polar bears possess one of the strongest bite forces of any land animal. Coupled with their immense strength and long incisors, the bear inflicted horrific injuries. It twisted and pulled Horatio's neck, then attacked his face and head. Bones were fractured and crushed, and flesh was ripped away. Survival was impossible. The scene was one of unimaginable violence. The bear, driven by instinct, had unleashed its full power on the vulnerable young man. The other students witnessing this horror were left traumatized. The idyllic adventure had turned into a gruesome nightmare, a stark reminder of the raw, untamed power of the Arctic wilderness. The compromised safety measures and the lack of proper training had led to a catastrophic failure, leaving a permanent scar on the expedition. The polar bear crushed Horatio's skull, ending his life. Patrick, meanwhile, sought refuge under blankets in the tattered tent. The other students, awakened by the bear's growls and Horatio's screams, were horrified. The bear then pursued another group member. The expedition leader attempted to fire his rifle, but it malfunctioned. Students watched as he repeatedly tried to eject and reload the cartridge. The bear, noticing him, attacked, knocking him to the ground and chewing on his head. Despite the immense pressure, the leader tried to gouge the bear's eyes, but it was ineffective. Another leader then risked his life, distracting the bear with shouts and rocks. This provoked the bear to chase him around the campsite. When the bear caught up, it struck him down as well, placing its paws on the leader's shoulders and leaning its head close. The scene was one of chaos and terror as the students witnessed the brutal power of the polar bear and the desperate attempts to stop it. After a tense standoff, the bear slashed the leader's face and attempted to chew on his head. Despite his own injuries, the other leader managed to reload the rifle with a previously misfired cartridge. This time, the rifle fired, killing the polar bear instantly, ending the attack. A necropsy revealed the bear was approximately 24 years old, near the end of its natural lifespan. It was emaciated, malnourished, and had rotten teeth and a severe jaw infection. It's believed its hunger drove the attack. Horatio died from severe head and neck injuries. The leader suffered similar, though survivable, injuries. Scott sustained deep lacerations, and Patrick and the other leader both suffered fractured skulls. A formal inquiry was held, and the victims' parents attempted to hold the expedition liable. However, the expedition was ultimately cleared of wrongdoing. The tragic event highlighted the unpredictable nature of wildlife and the inherent risks of exploring remote environments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe the channel.